Hello, Avram. I can see you, but I cannot hear you.
How about now?
Mm-mm.
Hello?
Uh, I'm
No?
seeing I'm seeing audio motion come from you. Hold on.
Yeah?
Oh, I see why. Hold on. I should be able to hear you now.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can.
All right, good. All right. Sorry.
No worries.
Uh we were on the way home and Isaac got car sick and threw up on himself.
Oh no.
We so had to deal with that. So delayed me a couple minutes.
Understood.
Anyway, he should
No
have been playing
worries.
Nintendo Switch in the back seat.
A lesson learned.
Yes. Yes, for
Uh,
all of us. He shouldn't have been doing it, you know. Um
this needed to be you. Hooray! You came in with a new name tonight.
I did.
Yeah, your whole name showed up in the graphic tonight instead
Oh,
of
you know why? Oh, I typed the whole thing. Why did I do that? All right,
I don't
well,
know.
whatever.
No worries. I saw it come in. I'm like, oh, well, that's a new one. No worries.
Yeah,
So,
it has me type it. Yeah.
oh, okay, I understand. Interesting. So, what are we talking about tonight from you?
Well, you said we're going over best of the year
We can do that.
or year wrap up. I have a best of the decade list we could talk about.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds
The
great.
most influential products of the decade
Sure.
that we could talk about.
Yeah,
Um,
that sounds good.
so
Um, so for the standard topics, the whole two talk United Arab Emirates spy app thing,
uh,
and why that contradicts the government's belief that encryption's a bad thing. Um, uh, Sony has a new design patent for a controller with buttons on the back, probably for the DualShock 5, which is pretty cool. I think this is an important one. Cox Communication was found liable for internet users' behavior.
uh-huh.
$1 billion they got hit for because people who are Cox subscribers were pirating music.
Oh boy.
Uh huh. Can you imagine if Ford had been held liable for the Simpson murders just because OJ was in a Bronco?
Allegedly.
That's
Um,
that's crazy. Anyway, and then
uh,
Sling is the last of the live TV streaming services to raise their prices, which have already gone into effect.
okay. So all sounds good.
I'm impressed though. They managed to stave it off for 2 full years. January 2018 was the last time the Orange plan had a price increase. Not bad, considering AT&T seems to
Yep.
do it every week or two.
Yep.
All right. I already made all those changes, so actually really impressed. The processor's only at 55% tonight. I wonder what I did differently. All right. I'm going to record the studio. I'm going to record the Avram. I'm going to record audio, which sometimes I forget to do. All right. I am ready to go. Good evening from Plugkit Studios in Largo, Florida. I'm Scott,
I'm Abram.
and we are here with episode 546 of F5 Live Refreshing Technology for Sunday, December 29th, 2019. This show is a proud part of the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here. This week, Sony's changing the controller. Cox is paying for your privacy. Nope, piracy. It's okay. It's the end of the year. I'm going to make mistakes. And Sling is charging more for their TV. Wherever you are and however you're accessing our show, whether it be on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, on any of our live stream platforms, livestream.com, Mixer, Twitch, YouTube Live, Facebook Live, or Periscope, on any of the podcatchers, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or any of the others, or of course on our website, plughitslive.com. Thank you for making us a part of your day. There are two ways that you can do that. The first is Sunday nights about 9 p.m. Eastern Time. You can go to f5live.tv/join us. There you can watch us live and chat with us in the studio. Give us your feedback on the topics as we talk about them. We always love to hear what you have to say. If you can't join us live, that is okay. If you go to plughitslive.com/subscribe, you can see all of our shows, including F5 Live, The Pilch Point, and a lot more, and find all the different ways that you can subscribe to these and all the other shows. I think that's the spiel, Abram. How have you been?
Not too bad. It's a quieter week because our office has been officially closed like Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So even though I still have to do some work, I'm not doing it that many hours a day, and I'm not getting as much done as I would have liked to because I am actually spending some of that time with my family. I know that's terrible, but it's kind of difficult. It's kind of difficult to my son is off. It's kind of difficult to be like, yeah, I just want to see if I can write an extra review during my time off.
Right.
So no, I gotta, I want to spend the time with him. So,
Sure. It's unusual to get that much contiguous time together.
yes, it is. Right. Because even if I take time off, even if I use a vacation day, he's got school. So,
Right.
So it's been a fun few days. Looking, I'm starting to feel nervous about CES, which I know we're both going to be at starting next week. I don't have all my appointments scheduled yet. It stresses. CES is just one big stress.
Yes, it is. Truer words have never been spoken, Abram.
Yeah. I'll just leave it with this. I like to think of CES as sort of like one of my daughter's soiled diapers. The only thing worse than changing it is not changing it and letting it fester. So that's what CES is like. The only thing worse than going is not going and missing out on important stuff. So like I gotta go, and everyone who I meet there, all the companies I meet there, it's all lovely. It's great. It's just getting around with all of the crowds and the different locations and having to march through these casinos where you're trying to make you get lost because they have like signs pointing in like 5 different directions. Like it's just waiting in a cab line for an hour to get a cab to go from one place to go a mile. It's that's the part that becomes a real pain in the butt.
Yeah. Well, my show experience is going to be a little different this year, since I will be spending probably most of my week in the live studio. We have 152 interview slots.
Wow.
In 4 days.
Well, listen, if all you're doing is if I got to just stay in one place there, then there wouldn't be so much stress.
Yeah, it's a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
Of course, the fact that Michelle and I are getting to executive produce the network's coverage this year adds a level of stress on top of the norm. But I'm very excited about it. Michelle is very excited about it. We've got some really cool stuff planned. both for during the week and the end of the week, and I can't wait. And on top of that, as we tend to do at CES when we have something new and exciting within our own company, we will be debuting some new branding during CES this year. So if you're watching us on YouTube right now, you are already seeing the new branding. It's where we've been testing it. But everybody else will get to see it. I am actually wearing a Plug Hits Live shirt right now tonight as kind of a farewell to the old branding, because this will be the last time that this will probably be seen on camera. So all pretty exciting. When we come back, there are going to be some changes in the studio too. So 2020 is going to be a big year for us. Very excited for some visual refreshes, because for those of you who have been following us for a long time, this logo has been around for almost 14 years.
Yep.
And it is definitely time to do some updates, and a number of people within the company have worked on this branding update, and we're all very excited about it. I get to pick up my new shirts this week.
Fantastic.
Very excited about it. But anyway, yes, CES is going to be big this year. I'm very excited. We're getting to work with so the live show is going to be obviously Plug Hits Live. It's going to be Geek News Central with Todd Cochran. It's going to be Tech Ranch with Marlo. It's going to be The Gadget Professor with Don Bain. It's what other brands are represented? GNC Weekly with Kirk, and Talking Sound with Christopher Jordan are all going to be represented, and it's going to be really cool. I'm very excited about it. And we're bringing back the best of the TPN picks this year. I have not told any of the TPN people that yet, but you guys heard it first. The TPN picks are back this year, and I got these really cool trophies, which I'm very excited about. Anyway, that starts way too soon. Next Sunday, the timing will be different. The show will be probably, it tends to be Danielle and I, and this year we will be doing it from our new studio at the broadcast tower from the Sands. So that's going to be pretty cool. It's going to be the way we test our new studio. So seems like a live ammunition test is the only way to do it, right? So, we'll see how it goes. But for now, let's get into some news. This week's Nifty Gifties and F5 Live is proudly powered by the Microsoft Store. Whether you're looking for a new laptop, a tablet, VR or AR headset, an Xbox One S or X, or a host of other products, including software and games, you can find it all at the Microsoft Store. And if you're a student or active military, you get a 10% discount on almost all products. And to find all the deals that are going on right now, you can go to f5live.tv/Microsoft. So we have talked a lot about two topics over the last year. We have talked about the evolution of messaging and the government's insistence that encryption is insane. And this week, those two stories seem to have come together in a fascinating way. There is a product that has been on the market for a little while that has been mostly ignored, at least in the West, called 2Talk. Yes, I know, it sounds a lot like TikTok, and that's almost certainly on purpose. But 2Talk is a messaging platform that is not banned in countries where the high-profile messaging services are either banned or censored, like Messenger or WhatsApp or things like that. As it turns out, the reason why it's not banned in countries like, for example, the United Arab Emirates, where the ones I mentioned, Messenger, WhatsApp, things like that, are banned, is because it's owned by the government, the United Arab Emirates government, and it's being used to spy on people who are using it. The website and the app description talk a lot about privacy, but never mention encryption. And so I guess all that talk about privacy is smoke and mirrors, because all of the data that goes through the service, including your location and contact list, which they get permission for under the auspices of giving you intelligent recommendations for friends, all goes through a firm called Dark Matter, which is under investigation by the FBI for international espionage.
So, why is their name of their company so on the nose? Like, you know, it's like whenever you watch a show and like the villain is named like something with a name Mal in it or something like that, like Malefactor or something like, oh well, I guess this is the villain.
Right.
Like, you
It's like
don't throw, like
it's like the software version of Peter and the Wolf. They're not they're not trying to hide anything.
right, exactly. Like they're not even. I mean, they couldn't spin it as a euphemism or something like that. No, dark matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
Well,
And
it's
then
amazingly self-aware.
it's true. So the hacking firm, and that's what they call themselves, is a hacking firm. Um, this hacking firm, Dark Matter, their name is right on the money, and then the software name, Tutok, which people immediately associate with TikTok, which is a Chinese government spy and censorship platform for their own citizens. Uh, Here you've got a
Wait,
United
TikTok.
What?
Wait, TikTok is used by the Chinese government?
It's owned and operated by the Chinese government.
Really?
Uh huh. Yeah, TikTok is
So,
owned and operated by the Chinese government, and the government uses the data that goes through it to determine people in China who are mentioning topics that are off color, like homosexuality or democracy. Yeah, TikTok is a terrifying platform, just like Tutok.
wait,
The
isn't TikTok where people listen to Old Town Road?
It's where young kids dance with no shirts on to music that they don't recognize.
All right.
It's
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I guess.
TikTok is the evolution of the old Musical.ly app after the Chinese government bought that
Right.
app.
Ah.
So I mean, they immediately associated themselves with government spying and censorship right from the name. So this whole thing is pretty well on the nose.
Yep.
So TikTok this week was banned by the federal government and the military from use by any government or military personnel. Tutok was in the process of being banned by both the government and the military from use once this came out. But Apple and Google made sure to take care of this one and pulled it from both of their stores. So, at least in the West, who knows if it's available elsewhere, but it's definitely not available in the U.S. anymore. So, I guess sometimes they act on credible information, but yeah, absolutely fascinating, especially considering theoretically the UAE is, I mean, it's a dubious partner, but it is technically an ally in a number of fronts. For example, the war on terror, the UAE is an ally of ours, and here we are going, uh-oh. So where this intersects with our other topic from the past year is if a messaging app does not mention encryption and does not uh, transparently offer encryption and just talks about privacy, it's nonsense. It's what Snapchat did, and it turned out, oh, yep, privacy. Yeah, your messages disappear from the other person's device in 10 seconds, but we're going to store them all on our servers unencrypted forever. Um, so if they don't transparently talk about encryption, the privacy they're talking about is nonsense. So definitely be careful. Watch wording. Language matters. And in this case, language really matters because it turned out to be a bit of a spy app. So obviously, it probably doesn't apply to or matter to people who are, U.S. citizens. But if you're, from the Emirates or you're here and from there, it could be problematic for you. So luckily, it's gone in the West, at least in the West. But be careful with messaging apps. You can't necessarily trust them just because they're trendy. This week's Pilch Point with Avram Pilch is proudly powered by PureVPN. When you're using the internet, whether it be on your computer or your phone, you can't necessarily trust the things you're using. People might be watching what you're doing. It could be Facebook or Google. It could be your ISP. It could be an app like TuTalk. Any of them can be watching your behavior, but with a product like PureVPN, you get some added protection. You get obfuscation of your browsing history. In some cases, you can even encrypt data and your browsing history. And right now, PureVPN is, as they tend to for our viewers, running a deal. If you sign up for a couple of years subscription, you can get the service for as low as $1.88 a month, and that's a great deal. And you can find out about all of the discounts that are available right now, and get a free trial of the service by going to pilchpoint.live/purevpn. So it's the end of the year, Avram.
It's also the end of the decade.
Indeed it is, which is crazy to think. In just a couple of
days,
it
went by so fast.
The 20s.
Yeah,
indeed. It's really weird to think that we've been doing this show in just a couple of days. We will have been doing it in 3 decades.
Wow. Crazy times. So, time really flies. So, it just seems to me like decades, maybe it's just because I'm not as in touch with like youth culture and popular culture as I was when I was younger, but it just seems like the zeros and the tens didn't really have like a style and character like the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Sure.
Other
than maybe the Roaring 20s.
What is the...
But right.
But I mean...
That decade is its own special thing.
What I mean is like almost every decade from the 20s through 2000, you could sort of say there was something that's symbolic of it. Like, the Roaring 20s, you have Flappers and, excess, and then the 30s, the Great Depression, 40s, war, 50s, a certain... anyway, point is, I don't know. I can't, I don't know. Like, I know a lot of people are like, yeah, I want to listen to some 80s music. I don't know. Are there going to be people who are going to be like, give me some 10s music. Give me Old Town Road. Anyway. So anyway, a lot has changed in the world of technology in the last 10 years. And at Tom's Hardware, we put up an article on Friday about the most influential tech products of the 2010s. And, here's a little taste of it. So one thing, one thing we found really influential was AMD's first Ryzen chip, the Ryzen 1800X, really brought AMD back into being a serious competitor in CPUs, where it was just kind of only making bargain basement types of chips for a long time.
Yeah.
And Ryzen actually put it in direct competition with Intel's fastest chips. And it's been so when the Ryzen 7 1800X debuted in 2017, and it had 8 cores and 16 threads, and it was like half the price of what you would pay for something with that much multitasking from Intel. It really made a dent, and now we obviously see just tremendous growth for AMD. Um,
Yeah.
Another thing, of course, you'll
Their
forgive my
stock is
continuous.
their stock is through the roof
Yep,
since the Ryzen chips.
yep, that is, and in a lot of ways they're ahead of Intel now. They have 7 nanometer
Mm-hmm.
process.
Mm-hmm.
Intel can't even produce 10 nanometer at scale. So um, obviously I'm we all know I'm a big fan of the Raspberry Pi. That came out in 2012, and I think was a huge influence. It's been a very influential product in all of its iterations. It's really inspired and really given a huge boost to the maker movement, to people building things like robots and home IoT devices, to kids learning how to program and things like that, and to what we expect from a cheap computer and a small single board computer.
Mm-hmm.
For $35, you can get a really, really powerful device in the Raspberry Pi 4, and you can use it for everything from surfing the web, which is not really the best use of it, to using to building a security camera, a robot, a web server. So that's obviously a very influential product, and often copied. Another thing that really came to life in the last 10 years is variable refresh monitors. Uh, it was, you know, it was in 2013, NVIDIA first introduced G-Sync, which was closely followed by AMD's FreeSync. And now we generally call the whole thing adaptive sync. But the idea of having your video card synchronized to your monitor's refresh rate, so that you don't have screen tearing, um, is very mainstream now. And 10 years ago, who would have thunk of it?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Another one of my favorite, most influential products, and it's unfortunate to me that even 6 years after its release, it's still not as widespread as it should be. But USB Type C is definitely one of the most influential products of the tens. Um, Coming up with a universal, with a way to do USB that is carries 100 watts of power and is reversible, and could just do so many things. That's obviously made for big changes in the industry, but it's still shocking how many products don't have Type C on them. Um, Another thing that was really another other product that was really influential in the tens is the Microsoft Surface. Um, whether you want to talk about the original Surface that was running not real Windows, Windows RT, or the Surface Pro, um, the fact is Surface inspired, a whole form factor, a whole bunch of imitators trying to have a tablet with a lightweight keyboard cover, including Apple's iPad Pro. So that has been an extremely influential product.
In the
So
studio, in the studio right now, there are two of them.
exactly. So, you think about things that are, I mean, what are some of the products that really stand out to you, Scott? That really
Um,
stand out to you as having sort of changed the industry?
you know, I when you mentioned this at the beginning of the show, I had not looked at the list yet, and the first thing that came to mind for me was USB C. So I'm definitely
Yeah.
with Andrew on that one because I see his name on that one on the list now.
Yeah.
I definitely 100% agree on that one. I think not just the fact that it's way easier to plug something in, right? Which of course it is, but I think that's a bonus. No more do you have the situation where you only get it on the third try, which is, I mean, it's going to ruin a lot of memes, but that's
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
the more universal nature of it. It's not micro on some things and full size on other things, and A on this and B on that. No, everything's C, and I think that's a really great idea. You can run video over it and all kinds of stuff. But I think the the wider variety of hardware, right? It used to be, whether that be the Surface technology, the Surface devices. Somebody's unhappy, huh?
Sorry.
I hear somebody unhappy in the background. Whether that be the Surface devices adjusting the overall landscape of computers, or AMD coming out of their slump from their inability to transition from flip phones and feature phones to smartphone processors. They seem to take a full decade to come out of that. Just the wider variety of hardware. You've got everything from your traditional big, powerful, beefy gaming desktops and laptops all the way down to the Raspberry Pi and the Arduino, and they're readily available. No longer do you have to be like an oddball consumer to go hunting for that powerful gaming laptop. It used to be a real pain this time last decade. If we were talking about this in '09, it wasn't that easy for a regular consumer to hunt down a powerful, beefy gaming laptop. But today, you can get them at Walmart. You know what I mean? I just think the variety of hardware that has come out of this decade has been probably the biggest influence, and I think that has to do with the technology getting smaller. Right? We've got so much stuff that's been able to get smaller and more powerful in a smaller piece. So miniaturization might be my thing for the decade. That might be
Yeah.
the biggest technology now that I think it out.
Yeah. I mean, if you take that trend and you extend it, think about even now, while they're readily available, gaming laptops are still fairly heavy, and you can't actually game on them unplugged.
Yeah.
Usually, the video card throttles, and you can't really play just on battery power. You could use it as a computer, but it's usually integrated graphics or something when you're on battery power. So
Mm-hmm.
that to me says like that's the next step, is can you actually play wirelessly? Can you actually play unplugged? And that I think requires some advances in terms of either better integrated graphics or more power efficient discrete.
Yeah.
um, I can see that we're not going to really, battery technology is not going to provide the solution. It's going to
No.
have to be power efficiency.
Sure. And the other thing that I think is going to be the technological takeaway from the 2010s is going to be virtualization. Um, whether it be the idea of cloud computing and how easy virtualization has become for software developers in the cloud to be able to go to Azure and say new web service for computers with a load balancer. Walk away, and 8 minutes later, it's ready to publish to. That's crazy. And the fact that you can scale that machine from 1 core to 16 core in about 3 minutes, that that's insane. And when when Bill Gates and Jerry Seinfeld were walking out of the mall with a pair of shoes, and somebody said to the cloud, I know that this isn't what they were talking about. But, I think, if you look at how many things it has made possible, Project X Cloud and Google Stadia and things like that on the gaming side, that ability to take some of the load off of the computer and put it somewhere else. Or we talked to a company at Collision this year that was doing something similar, but not really, for VR and AR, where they were kind of offloading some of the rendering so that the hardware didn't have to be as beefy in a headset. Just the idea of virtualization, the ability to push stuff, hard stuff off site, and be able to do it remotely and just push the results back down. I think that'll be one of the takeaways for this decade. So, I know obviously those three are not going to be your whole list, right, Avram? Your mic's not on.
Oh, sorry, I was trying to mute out the dude crying.
I gotcha.
So if you go to tomshardware.com, on our homepage, you'll see a list of the most influential products of the 2010s. And you will also see, I'll just put in a pitch for this because it's very influential to me, a list of the best Raspberry Pi projects of 2019, which has a lot of fun stuff, including my favorite, a robotic hand that you can control from another room by using a glove. So anyway, so check all that out on tomshardware.com. Also, coming up this week, the worst products of the 2010s.
Oh, I can't wait for that one.
Yes. Do you have any suggestions for late edition? I can add. I'll be probably adding more to the list tonight and tomorrow to the worst list.
Let me get through the show. Let my mind get back onto thinking about things, because I was prepared for the first question. I wasn't prepared for the second one.
Okay. Got it.
I prepped myself.
If we have anybody in the chat room, I definitely ask if you have any worst products of the last of the 2010s that you would like to suggest. Worst tech products.
Sure. Well, I'm looking forward to that one, because sometimes Schadenfreude can be fun.
Indeed.
From a personal perspective, it doesn't really quite match the caliber that we're looking for, and I can definitely appreciate that. But from a personal perspective, this damn LED strip that has owned my life for the last 5.5 weeks.
Oh,
that's not the caliber we're talking about, but what a pain in the butt that thing's been. Anyway, as always, Avram, I appreciate it. Hopefully you'll have a good New Year this week, and I will see you shortly in Las Vegas. This week's Extra Life on F5 Live is proudly powered by Razer. All the accessories you need to up your game on both PC and consoles are available from Razer. Whether you're looking for a new keyboard or mouse, like what we use here in the studio, you're looking for a cool webcam that's got a chroma key built in, or you're really into RGB LED and you want to really pimp out your office or your gaming room with devices that all light up in sync with one another. Razer's got it all, and you can find all of those products by going to f5live.tv/Razer. All right, so over the last couple of weeks, we have heard a ton about, at least in the grand scheme of things, about the new Microsoft console, what was once Project Scarlet and is now the unbelievably stupidly named Xbox Series X. But this week, we got some interesting new information in rumor form about the PlayStation 5. Sony has been less forthcoming about the information about its next console, but a design patent filing with the World Intellectual Property Organization this week showed some changes coming to the DualShock 5 controllers theoretically. Now, of course, anytime a patent is filed, you have to take it with a grain of salt because it may very well just be them messing around. They may have filed it just to keep us on our toes. Anything is possible, but this design is fairly familiar. It looks a lot like a DualShock 4 controller with the addition of the add-on available for the DualShock 4 with the back button accessory attachment built in. If you don't know what that is okay. Most people don't, and it's the reason why it has almost no support. It adds buttons to the back, similar to some of the Xbox controllers, so that your right thumb is not in charge of all of the button activity. If you want to be able to program it to do your more common things, you can move them on the back where your fingers already are and probably aren't doing anything. So that accessory, for those who knew about it and those who purchased it, was very popular, and it looks like Sony might be adding it officially to the hardware for the next generation, which personally I think is cool because I have never found holding a PlayStation controller terribly comfortable, especially the 3 and 4, because everything is up here, but it's designed to be held like a PlayStation 1 controller with your fingers down here. So by bringing some buttons down and making them customizable, it really does add some uniqueness to your gameplay. So if, jumping and melee are your thing, you could bring jumping and melee to your back buttons and make the fingers that are holding the controller in place start being useful. Something I kind of like. And as somebody who tends to own both consoles and tends to play more on the Xbox side because I hate the PlayStation controllers, this might actually shift me some that direction.
Yeah, I think it's a great innovation. I mean, what are you doing with your middle finger, with your middle fingers or your index fingers when you're holding the controller? Right? Not much.
You might
So
some people might put them on the bumpers or the triggers up top, but that's
yes,
that's a weird hold. But you've still got fingers down here that are doing nothing but holding the control in place. And so if the buttons are right under those fingers already, and you have the ability to map, X and O down there, which for a lot of games would be jump and melee, it seems like a great way to not have to move your thumb back and forth between two separate aspects of the controller.
Here's my concern about it. I mean, I think it's great for being an option for people to map stuff to.
Mm-hmm.
I think it could, you already have, like, how many buttons do you have? You've got the 2 triggers, the 2 shoulders, and the 4 action buttons, and that's not even talking about any of the, like, the start or select
right
buttons that you have on controllers.
Right.
So, I've got
Plus,
basically 8 play
plus on
buttons to
the
work.
plus on the 4, you've got that touch panel. The DualShock 4's got
Right,
that weird swipe panel on it.
right. So you're going. I mean, if you have a game where you need 10 different buttons to play,
Uh-huh.
if those buttons, like if you can't, if those buttons are by default used by something, that could be a little bit, much. And then I don't know. I really don't know enough about this topic to speak with great authority about the topic of people who are differently abled and can't, don't
Mm-hmm.
have use of their full hand or whatever. But it seems
Uh-huh.
to me that if somebody has problems with their hand, whether it's arthritis or they don't have 5 fingers
Sure.
or things like that.
Yeah,
Adding buttons to the bottom of the controller makes it exponentially harder to use because
for
it
sure.
requires you to grip it this way.
Yeah, and you know, my guess is that at some point in the next year or two, we will see Sony uh, try and play in the arena that Microsoft is already playing in with the adaptive controller. But I think Microsoft shocked everybody with that. I don't think anybody was prepared for the adaptive controller. And I think Sony will get into that space, or Microsoft will make the adaptive controller work with the PlayStation 5, which might be more likely because it already works with the Switch. Uh, so, for people who are differently abled with their hands, whether it be dexterity or missing digits or whatever it is, something like the adaptive controller may be the better option anyway. Just in general, because there's so many unique ways that you can use that to control a game. But yeah, I mean, just in all reality, it's going to be weird for a lot of people, even even long-term gamers. These buttons might be weird for a lot of people and might be difficult for a lot of people to be able to access. But since they are remap buttons and not unique control buttons, I think that's important. They will replicate another button on the controller, which I think is way better than, like you said, adding 9 and 10 to the controller.
Now, if you're using it on a PC or something where you can, maybe there are macros or
Mm-hmm.
something that you
Sure.
want for certain games where that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I would imagine that the control software that will inevitably come out for the PC, because the DualShock 3 and 4 both have control software for the PC. I would imagine that the reprogrammability would be there to do more complicated, more interesting things than just remap the X and O button. So, but again, like we said at the top of this, it's a patent filing. It does not mean that this is what the DualShock 5 controller will look like, because if I had to guess based on Sony's history, we will find out details, true details about the console either at E3 2020 or shortly before, like they did with the PS4. They did their solo event and then gave bigger details at E3. One of those behaviors will be what happens. So they have several months to really nail down what their plans are. More so than, say, Microsoft, who already showed off a photo of the Xbox Series X Phone 7 controller at their last event. So I cannot, by the way, stop hearing in my head Windows Phone Series 7 when I say Xbox Series X. It's like, did you guys not learn your lesson with Windows Phone Series 7? It's so hard to say. Xbox Series X is no better. Anyway, doesn't matter. Not what we're talking about. That will be the branding disaster of 2020. For now, that doesn't matter. But it will be interesting to see what Sony does with the controllers. This week's news from the tubes and F5 Live is proudly powered by RiffTrax. Make fun of movies or let these guys do it for you. Mike Nelson, Bill Corbett, and Kevin Murphy, the former stars of Mystery Science Theater 3000, are back and doing what they do best, creating commentaries for Hollywood blockbusters and B-movie oddities like Attack of the Super Monsters, which I am pretty sure seems to be part cheap animation and part playing with puppets. Oh, terrible. Anyway, the way it works is for a couple of bucks. You download the MP3, play it along with the DVD, Netflix, Amazon, wherever the movie happens to exist. Where this one could possibly exist, I couldn't tell you. Oh my god, it's terrible. And laugh. They also do live events. The live shows tend to eventually show up on the website as downloadable content as well. And they also have short films, those industry films, like The Importance of Springs. I know, I use that one every time because it's terrifying. Or the films that you watched in school. All of those get made fun of and made watchable by the RiffTrax group. And you can find out about all of the short films, the feature films, and the live events by going to f5live.tv/RiffTrax with an X. I will never get the voice of the spring out of my head because it's horrifying. Anyway, so it's weird to end the decade with a story that is very much of the last decade, but here we are. The Recording Industry Association of America, RIA, and a number of non-members created a coalition of 50-plus companies and got together in 2018 to sue Cox Communication. Now, I know, it sure sounds like this would be a story from 2006, but it's not. They filed suit in 2018, and here's why. Because they believed that Cox Communications did not filter the internet. No, of course not. Because there's no evidence that in the last 15 years the ISPs have done any of that. And so they claim that Cox is complicit in piracy on their network because they did not watch their users' web browsing habits and prevent them from accessing certain parts of the internet. Now, couple things. One, at the time, the FCC was working on their version of what they thought net neutrality was, which would have prevented Cox from doing that. And also, who wants their internet service provider to be watching their every move and start going, you can't go to that website? So, but RIA does. RIA wants them to be doing that. And unfortunately, a federal court in Virginia does too. Because the suit, after 3 weeks of trial and testimony, resulted in a $1 billion fine against Cox Communications for just over 10,000 instances of their complicit action. $1 billion because they did not filter some people's internet access. That is a terrifying legal precedent.
Well, what it says is, Cox, you should be monitoring people's internet usage, and so, I don't foresee ISPs like, if this stands, expect every ISP to try and do more things to spy on your internet usage to make sure that you're not doing something that they could get sued for. That's very bad.
Yes.
that really says you should be using a VPN.
I was going to say, that
Um,
brings us right back to pure VPN, doesn't it?
yes, that really says you should be using a VPN. Although I wonder, is there a way for them to ban VPN?
They'd have to know all of the endpoints. So, I mean, uh, the likelihood is low. It's it would be a complicated
It,
it would be a complicated thing to do. It's not like they can, like the ad blockers that know that, you know, link share or or link synergy or whatever the
yeah,
domain is a known advertiser. Knowing all the IP endpoints for a VPN would be crazy.
yeah, fair enough. But yeah, that's really not the precedent that we want to have as internet users. Whether you think, hey, piracy is bad, that's beside the point. Also, if there was
Yeah.
10,000 compromised
Whether
recordings, only 10,000.
uh-huh. 10,026 I believe was the number. Because why go with a round
So
number?
like if that's the case, don't you think probably more than 10,000 songs, unless you count having the same song shared by different people at different times as one, don't you think people probably shared more than 10,000 songs somehow passing through Cox? So like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so are they going to come back for more? I mean, this
Well,
is
are they going to come back for more? It's a fascinating question, and there's two parts to it, to the answer. The first part is there are pending uh, suits against the other ISPs for the same thing, and now that there is a federal precedent, only a federal court can hear them, which is what they were going for. Um, and with a legal precedent, unless they end up in a different circuit court, uh, the precedent is all that matters, and a trial doesn't have to be held, which is summary judgment is terrifying. And yes, almost certainly they have got a database filled with future complaints. Almost certainly. I have no doubt.
yeah. So, I mean, this is even worse, I think, than when they started to sue individual users, because at least people were being held responsible for what they did.
I mean,
Now we're all,
there was that grandmother that was sued for using LimeWire, even though she had a Mac and LimeWire didn't work on it. But yes, I
well, okay, in theory, if it was correct, they were being sued for something that they individually did.
sure
But now, who's going to pay this $1 billion? The
everybody on
obviously
Cox.
subscribers to Cox.
Yeah,
Everybody on
everybody.
Cox is going to pay it, and, they're not just going to pay it in dollars; they're going to pay it in their privacy,
Privacy.
because this is exactly what, like, what would Cox have to do? Now, what I don't understand is, doesn't the DMCA, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, have some kind of safe harbor for ISPs for this kind of thing?
It did, but over the last, well, not the last 2 years, but before that, 3 to 5 years ago, parts of the DMCA were dismantled,
Ugh.
including the stuff that holds YouTube, Plug Hits Live, Tom's Guide liable for the comments on our sites. It's the reason why
It,
that's it's what started some of the trouble with YouTube recently. A lot
yeah,
of the safe
I
harbors were
mean,
dismantled.
that's really terrible. I mean,
Agreed.
somebody should do something about that. It is really is to sue someone, ISP, for what their users did, or to sue a website for what their users did, is is so chilling, because what it, you cannot 100%, nor do people really want you to 100% control what is said and done. So like, if you do that, then like just take it to its logical conclusion. I mean, look at how much stuff is posted on Facebook and social media. Like it's, where does it end?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I,
And does it end at digital, or does a mall owner become liable for providing the parking lot that a robber used to store their car during a robbery? You know,
I
it's
mean, it's not insane, because to say that, because once again, Cox provides a pathway to the information superhighway,
sure.
uh, as we used to call it. Peop, it
Yeah,
they
it
just
definitely
as
that definitely
just as a
aged you,
road.
Abram.
Yes, I know. The you know, so you're getting on the road. They can't tell what you're doing on the road. I
Hmm.
mean, it's
Right? Is the federal
it's a
government
little
responsible
ridiculous.
for uh, liable because a bank robber drove down the road? It
Right.
How is that any different? It's not. The government could be spying in every car to see if there's bank bags or whatever stupid thing,
Ugh.
but that would be crazy. Just like Cox or Comcast or Charter watching every packet that comes through their network to determine whether or not it contains music, and if it does, did it come from iTunes? What? That's that's insane.
But somehow, if this stands, they will have to find a way to do it because
Yeah,
it'll never be over. So
absolutely. And
they will have to find a way to do it.
absolutely. And the interesting part is they can go contact the ISPs in Britain, many of whom stopped providing internet access for a while entirely because they could not figure out a technological way to prevent access to adult content, which the British government. That was truly fascinating. I wonder whose problem it is. Uh that's so funny. So if you're watching live, um there we go. If you're watching live, what seems to have just happened is uh we were talking about ISPs watching our every move, and my internet went away here in the
Aha!
studio.
Aha! Holy cow!
So it's so funny because what happened here is I said the ISPs in Britain and couldn't figure out a technological reason way to accomplish filtering adult content, so they said bye bye, and you went away as soon as I said. All my screens went black in here as soon as I said the word
it's,
bye bye, and I'm like, wow,
it's like a
I didn't
voice
know I
command.
had
It's like
that.
a voice command.
Right? I did not realize that the studio had Alexa built in. It's impressive.
Yeah.
Anyway, so so yeah, I mean it's a complicated thing if the ISPs in Britain just went, nope, we're going to shut down entirely until y'all change your minds on this crazy thing. And that's literally what the US ISPs are about to be up against if this thing holds. My guess is this moves up the ladder. I cannot imagine that Cox is going to say, "All right, $1 billion, we're in. Here's a check." So they're going to try and appeal this higher, and since it was a federal court, my guess is uh, there might be a federal appellate court above, but I think the next move is the Supreme Court, and this sounds like the kind of case that they are just champing at the bit to hear.
Yeah.
So hopefully they will hear it and they will make the right decision. That, of course, Cox is not liable for the things that its users are doing. Fingers crossed, but everything seems unpredictable lately. So who knows? This week's DRM Not Included in F5 Live is proudly powered by Amazon Prime. In addition to your free shipping that you already know about, there's a lot of other features that you may not, like Amazon Prime Music, which gives you several million tracks available to stream for free as part of your subscription. Amazon Prime Video, which gives you TV, movies, documentaries, both original and licensed content, and all kinds of stuff is available, all as part of your subscription. And for me, it's all about Twitch Prime. You get one free subscription every month that you can use to financially support the content creator of your choice. You could use it to subscribe to Plug Hits Live and help us out, or any other content creators out there, and it doesn't cost you anything. And you get free games every month, free games and in-game content for other games. If you're a Prime subscriber already, you'll want to check these features out. We have short links so that you can find them easily. And if you're not already a subscriber, we've got a free 30-day trial so you can find out if Prime is for you. And all of that is available by going to f5live.tv/prime. So over the last couple of months, we have seen price increases on the major live TV streaming services. YouTube TV has done it. The service whose name seems to be its own moving target. It was DirecTV Now at one point. It's now AT&T TV Now. Who knows what it'll be called in the future. That service seems to get a price increase every other week. But the originator, the company that made the concept popular, Sling TV, has managed to avoid it until now. Their two primary packages, the orange and the blue, are both seeing a price increase. They will go to is it $25? No, $30 per package, and $45 if you subscribe to both of them together. But unlike the other guys, you're actually getting something more with the price increase. Both packages are adding new channels. Both packages are adding a 10-hour cloud DVD feature to your subscription. So for this, in the grand scheme of things, slight price increase. It's certainly not the 20. I think the last I saw it was the AT&T has gone up $23 in the last per subscription has gone up $23 in the last year. I think this comes out to about $5 more per subscription, and the orange package has stayed the same since January 2018, and blue has never had a price increase since it was announced at CES a number of years ago. So they've definitely held off, but I think they're a bit of a victim of their own success. The idea when they got started, the idea of a streaming-based cable provider totally made sense. But in the time since the CES announcement, we've seen, Abram talks about it. We talk about it a lot. The pairing of pipes and content has come together a lot. Comcast has way more control over NBC Universal now than they did when Sling TV was announced. CBS has its own service that provides your local cable channels. NBC with Peacock is going to bring that capability. AT&T owns both DirecTV and Time Warner, which means Turner, and all of that content as well. So there's less of a reason for AT&T or Comcast to negotiate with a company like Sling, who didn't used to be, but is now much more of a competitor. So I think the price increases were inevitable, but I think they were smart. They signed some long-term contracts early on, but it seems like maybe those are starting to come up, and we're starting to see some price increases. But you know, they created a concept that caught on, right? The idea of a cloud cable subscription was crazy when Sling said it at CES. Everybody was like, "I'm sorry, what are you pitching?" And now, Hulu and AT&T and Google all have competitors. Heck, Sony got into it with PlayStation View. So, but that single place for everything seems to be breaking up a little bit in a sad way. But I think that was the only way it was ever going to go when the cable providers started buying content too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like a cost of living increase all the time.
Mm-hmm.
With the cost of content just keeps going up and up and up. Um, and it's. I mean, part of it is, you keep getting. I mean, obviously, companies want to keep upping their profit,
Sure.
but it's also the fact that it probably gets it's a circle, right? Because it costs more to produce the content for the shows. That cost gets passed along to the to the from the networks, that pass it along to the cable providers, that pass it along to you.
Right.
So
Sure.
yeah, you can't.
Because you can't. People even from a sitcom, people aren't expecting Mork and Mindy quality filming and studio setups, or even Friends quality filming and studio setups today. They're expecting, The Office and Parks and Rec, which had significantly higher budgets for filming and production, and so even sitcom cost is going up. But then you've got your big budget stuff, Game of Thrones and Sense8 and Stranger Things, Lost in Space, stuff like that. All of that has caused the networks to have to bring up their quality. Stuff like The Expanse. You wouldn't have seen something like that on cable before before the likes of Stranger Things and the modern Lost in Space kind of stuff. They've had to bring their quality up, and with that comes cost.
Have you watched The Expanse?
I have started for sure.
I watched it when it was originally on Sci-Fi, and now I've seen the 4th season on Amazon, which is actually probably the best season. So yeah, that's good content. But anyway, yeah, but yes, I mean, it's inevitable that every company that provides content is going to have to raise their price. Every cable company, every streaming company, they're going to have to raise their prices.
Mm-hmm.
So
the fact that they held off for 2 full years is impressive.
Good, good for them. But when you hear about, I think of this almost like I think about the same way that I think about public transportation costs. Here in New York, you probably don't have concerned about that in Florida because everybody drives probably. But here, like, we've got our railroads that take you from the suburbs to the city, and we've got our and you've got the subway and the bus within New York City, and it's like every year or two they raise the price.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are one of the people who's using one of these services and your price was not raised, don't worry, it'll get you soon enough. Like if you're on the Long Island Railroad and you're not too upset because Metro North, which comes from West, which is the thing for people from Westchester, just raised their prices. Don't worry,
It'll get you.
they'll get you soon. So if you're on Sling, and if you were on Sling and you were having some Schadenfreude because your friends who were on cable services kept having higher and higher bills, well, don't worry, it was coming for you too.
Yep. Welcome to the party.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure. But you really do have to give them credit for holding off as long as they did. One of the packages has never changed price until now, and the other one, it's been 2 years. So good for them. But here we are. Well, that is our show. Thank you to those of you who joined us live. We've had some people in the chat room this evening. We appreciate that. For those of you who might still be in the chat room, once again, we will pose the question, worst products of the decade. Worst tech products of the decade. Definitely still put them in the chat room. We will check back, Mixer, Twitch, YouTube. We'll check back later tonight and tomorrow to see if anybody's got any ideas. Next week, the time will be different because we will be from the show floor at CES, which will be pretty cool. We'll be from our broadcast tower. That'll be cool with a CES pre-show, Danielle and I, and then all week following that, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, all day, we will be broadcasting from the show floor. A new interview every 10 minutes, 152 slots right now is what we have scheduled. So it will be a very interesting week. I'm very excited about it. You'll definitely want to follow us there. You will be able to watch it on the regular page that you come to watch us live. f5live.tv/join us will absolutely work. If you come to f5live.tv or plughitslive.com, it will also be the homepage. It will take you to CES and all of the Tech Podcasts Network stuff. So techpodcast.com will also have the coverage. And if things go well, it would be fun to maybe see Avram slide through the studio at some point if he's in the Sands.
I would really like to, and I'm in the Sands a lot. Sands is the best, the better area than the LPT.
I agree. So we are upstairs, same spot we've been the last couple of years, but on the tower. I'm very excited about it. The studio can see the show floor. It'll be very cool. Anyway, wow. It'll be the whole show. We're like almost a full. No, we are a full story up with the show floor behind us. It's gonna be really great. Very excited about it. Anyway, so definitely you'll want to be watching that. We'll have a lot of content, and I've been keeping track of the schedule. It's gonna be some cool stuff. So definitely check that out. And I guess with that, until next time and until next decade, I'm Scott.
I'm Avram.
And we'll see you next time. Ciao.